Okay, I'm going to cover first off starting with the consistency rankings and using the peripherals. This you find on the wealthyfantasyfootball.com blog, and then you just look through here as a tip for the week. I had a question myself as far as the pace of teams. I'm looking for is looked at more in the NBA, and we'll have that information easily accessed during the regular season of that. But this information here on the page, I'm just outlining, showing you according to the quarterback and the team, such as, for example, with Roethlisberger and the Steelers, as he has at 100 or near 100% of the snaps. That's 355 snaps for the year, compared to Rivers and the Chargers, 322. So the Steelers are getting more snaps or playing at a higher pace than the Chargers. But if the team has not played 5 games, I just make note here, and Panthers need one more game, or down here, and so on. Interestingly here, Tannehill, 266 snaps, lowest among snaps played by any quarterback who has played all 5 games. So looking at that, and these preference your teams. Line them up in your cash games so that you're making sure that you're taking from teams that are getting enough snaps and opportunities, a game of opportunity that is. And so let's see about the consistency rankings, the coefficient variation, projection, means, and standard deviation. Sorry, this is not lined up correctly. I'll get back in there and fix that. I'm also going to update to give you at the bottom of this page a lot of the are the best for more so a lot more so for tournaments, the best touchdown and red zone potential, as this takes into consideration here these numbers nothing to do with touchdowns. Unlike what I normally do, I include that, and it was actually not good to do because you don't want to include the possibility of a touchdown in your standard rankings. What I mean by standard is actually your cash main, game head-to-head and 50-50, as well as double ups instead of tournaments, large cash winnings for a low percentage of winnings of a large pool of players. So let's take a look at the top, perhaps the top, this is an order of highest scoring, so perhaps the top highest main slate scoring on FanDuel itself, to give you everything broken down here. Todd Gurley, I project him not including touchdowns. So if you want to add, say, oh, he's going to get a touchdown, you just add another 6 points onto this. You can say he's safe to say we'll get 18 point some points. And his average, again, without the touchdowns, is 13.7 per game. His standard deviation from that, the peripherals, which is based off of, I'll show you over here. See if I can find Gurley as a watched player. He's not a most watched player this week, maybe because he's too expensive. I just wanted to interestingly bring up the top watched players or chalk for the week, possibly. Most played players. Landry at the top, I'm not sure exactly. I suppose he's probably got a lot of factors in versus the Chargers this week. Terry Cohen, a lot of people watching him, and so on. So let's see. All right. I mean, it probably could be watching him for tournaments. It's not really specified. Obviously, we don't know who's watching what players as far as determining chalk. But this can just give you an idea of that. But anyways, looking back at Gurley, or let's take a look at Landry. I did happen to include the Browns and Ravens out of preference, even though it's not projected to be a high-scoring game, probably a defensive battle. That Landry, okay, is getting a standard deviation of 1.6. That means how much he deviates exactly from his target share, his touches. So right here, targets the last 3 games, I include and also consider his average of 11.4 targets a game to come up with how much he deviates at a rate that is of, we're right here, 1.6. And if you want to get a better idea what that means for you, really just compare it to some of the other this is not lined up here, but you can see it's the third column over the name, then my projection, the mean or average, and then the standard deviation compared to, let's say, a wide receiver for the Ravens who's doing good in consistency, targets that is, per game is simply all it means. Don't overcomplicate it. 1.4 compared to John Brown. I found that his targets can deviate as they're not consistent. And for John Brown, his number of targets per game and how much he may deviate from that, resulting in a 0.86, and that's a high coefficient variation. So the lower this number here, the lower that they're really, or more consistent that they really are. So Crabtree, 4 times more consistent than John Brown. Surprisingly, as you will find some surprising numbers if you really just look and compare these guys. I didn't include everybody from these teams, obviously. I tried to put guys with synergy together, such as Todd Gurley and Goff. As you can see, they're pretty consistent for a quarterback. If you get a .41, it's just fine. I noticed with Cam Newton, he had a .25. So Newton, even better, more consistent, which is not surprising than Goff, just because of him in that offense. So you need to look at all these different factors and really, thinking about, Ridley has shown to be pretty consistent at .21, but his average have around 5 points based off of his targets per game and projection that I have for him is not, going to be all that. But if you really want to compare what the value is, as well as I want to offer this tip here to someone of the same position, let's say, do I really want to pay for Thielen at 8,600 or just pay down for Landry at 6,900? Well, that's obviously let's see how much, $1,700 difference, right? So $1,700 I can compare. Okay, let's say I use the average, not considering the matchup. However, this does not take into account the matchup. So with that, the matchup, you better coming over here, getting your free 30-day trial of the draft dashboard and bringing up all this info here at your fingertips that we're going over. But the peripheral, let's say, comparing for here we got Thielen. Let's say we want to go according to his average 10.8 compared to Landry, which was 11 something, right? Aha. So actually an 8.6. 10.3 minus 8.6 is exactly 1.7. So, however, we got that $1,700, right? Difference. So let's say we go $1,700 divided by 1.7. That's a difference of $1,000. So if you're getting that much of a point for $1,000 difference, it's worth it. So if you're looking at the difference of that, like I say, that $1,700 difference between the two, for that $1,700, the 1.7 point is worth $1,000. As it shows here in the draft dashboard, his recent value, last 5 games that is, $405 per point. Landry, $674 per point. There's more value going on here with Thielen. And for $1,000 more for a 1.7 point, you're not getting that much value unless it was down in the $400 to $600 range. But that's $1,000 difference between the points. So take Thielen, give me the points for 8,600. It's a better move. That settles that. So, moving on here, looking at more so the tournaments for the week. You could start off with Thielen if you want. That's fine, even though he's chalk. if you want to chalk it up. But you could, oh, here's Gurley. You can play him. Good chalk to play always every week. I like James Conner this week. Taking a look at him at the Steelers. Conner's gotten more consistent, likely to give you around 13 points without even including or thinking about the touchdown. Actually, let's go over here and see, where he's at with the touchdown. Let's see. Running backs, red zone stats. And so how does it compare to other players, let's say? Inside 20, how many carries? Sort largest to smallest. Whoops. Thought I did that right. Oh, largest to smallest. 32 inside carries inside the 20 for Gurley. That's ridiculous. Followed by Sony Michel. Lynch is getting a lot. Hyde. There's Connor. Not bad. 12 carries inside the 12. And we can see here just pull across inside the 20 rushing rank within the top 80%, right? 9 carries. That's good inside the 10. Inside the 20 rush percentage. Actually, this is a percentage of the team. Sorry, not of the of these guys in the running back category. So 90% of the carries inside the 10, even better for Connor. 6 attempts, 86% of that. And then we can look at targets. He gets a few, targets inside the red zone. Interestingly here, if you want to look at, let's say inside the 20, inside the red zone, to largest. We got Melvin Gordon, James White, a lot of targets inside the 20. White's not going to play in the main slate, but you got Gurley, of course. Could be, of course, very much could be, that is, haven't checked it in particular, his value for the price you pay for him. Followed by some other guys here that, surprisingly, a lot of people are not big on Alex Collins, but however, he's getting some consistent work in this area. Surprisingly, even some targets. Looking at here, some rushing. Let's see. 29% only. Inside the 10, it gets better. 46%, maybe half, and so on. So, but like this week, you could go like with your flex position. You can go with a wide receiver. That's okay because there's some guys that are pretty consistent. Inside the 20, inside the 10, let's say, target percentage, largest to smallest, such as Corey Davis. Nice. So when we look at him, considering I know I had that flex spot position option between Davis and the season-long league, Davis and Collins. So, hey, maybe I look at Corey Davis instead if he gets that red zone opportunity. Target inside of 20, though, drops to 35%. And then we got Sterling Shepard, who didn't do good last night. This is on Wednesday, by the way, here Wednesday morning. Chris Godwin, I don't like him or love him this week. Green, I love this week with Andy Dalton. Put them together. Go ahead and put a guy together and create synergy on any kind of lineup. Really doesn't matter. And look at these guys here that you can do some good for tournaments and check out for your cash games. The best teams, best lines for the over-unders. Starting off with the Rams, Falcons. Look at these numbers go down the line. See which guys you want to play. Get the most consistent here out of the guys over to the right column. And you'll be surprised at a few other numbers. You can check the numbers if you wanted to, of course, just to be sure. Just by taking targets of, let's say, Connor for a running back, I would include half of his targets. So say for the week, give him 3 points for that week. Total it up. Put it in the standard deviation calendar, which is just like the one here. All you do real quick is you go here, you put in the numbers that you project out, line them up one by one. Let's say these are his numbers 10 for the season coming up in the future. 10, 2, 38, 23, 38. And those are his numbers, let's say, just theoretically, for Connor for the rest of the season coming up. That would give you a standard deviate of 13, which would be a high range of outcomes for him. But the mean, still give you an average here conveniently, 22 a game. Then you just divide the 22. You divide actually 13. Let's see, hypothetically here, if you had that larger sample size, we got, let's see, let's just round it off. 13 divided by, so we got the 13 sample standard deviation divided by the average, which is the average fantasy points per game on the site you want to play, 22. So we got a 0.59, not a consistent, a 0.59 compared to these other numbers we got here so far, like a 0.45 for Roethlisberger for quarterback. That's not too bad, I suppose. 0.27 though for Brown, doing good there. Smith-Schuster not as good, but still good at 0.32. Mixon at 0.57. He's up more in that range only because he had a hurt and got an injury. So you have to consider that into these numbers as well, their injuries and how many games are missed, perhaps for whatever reason, and go forward and look at your projections, setting your lineups there. So hope that all really helps as for the day for this blog and carrying out your lineup projections. Thanks a lot.